Thank you, Baby John Burgess, for your rendition of our theme, and welcome to episode 31 of the Champagne Comedy Podcast, where we talk about the best Australian comedy show of the 90s ever made and other D-Generation comedy tidbits. My name is Matt, and joining this podcast today is Alison, Daniel, Kim, Prue and Tony. The gang is back again, now that Tony has decided to join us, which is fantastic. So welcome back for this year, Tony.
Thank you.
Alison had pointed out to me earlier a few days ago off mic, basically I'm becoming a jinx with some people. Yeah, I'm sorry, all for the love of this podcast because, the passing of Glenn Wheatley. See, I had reached out to Glenn in late 2021 for an interview for this podcast, and I got daddoed, but it was he's passing, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we might let that daddoing slide, I think.
For episode 30, I tried to get Baby John Burgess as well, and then unfortunately, he ended up in hospital.
He's not dead yet.
No, he's completely fine.
So sending love to Burjo.
You're still welcome to come on, mate. I hope you get well. So
yeah, he's got a bacterial infection. Thankfully, he's in a stable condition, but not good. But I'm sure he'll get better. So putting out the love there to Burjo.
And I do apologise to anyone in advance who I decide to invite on the show because third time's a charm, right?
Maybe they'd better come on your show.
Yeah.
Or else.
Unfortunately, with Mr. Wheatley, he did pass away, and he did have a major connection with the D-Gen, especially when they were on Eon FM, because Mr. Wheatley was part of the Eon FM days. Tony and Jane had tweeted about their connection with it. Glenn did appear in The Late Show during John Farnham's Jesus Christ Superstar era. So that was season 1, episode 6.
Well, I'm backstage at Jesus Christ Superstar and I'm talking with John Farnham's manager, Glenn Wheatley. Glenn, you must be absolutely overjoyed with the way it's gone.
We're very thrilled, Rob. Very thrilled. Yes.
Really?
Oh, yes. The response has been fantastic.
Tell me, Glenn, the role of... Geez, it hasn't gone to John's head or anything like that.
Johnny? Oh, are you serious? Johnny, hey, come on. 25 years in the biz. I mean, he's
unaffected.
A pro.
Yeah.
I mean, of course.
Not moved. Can we go and say all that?
Absolutely.
Great.
Right,
Good. Well, let's go in and see what John's up to.
Turning water into wine.
As well as any other connection that Farnham was in relation to The Late Show, but also the little bit where the D-Gen actually met up with John being in the music clip as well, or seemed like a good idea at the time.
Tu dovresti suonare la fisarmonica per dare migliore apparenza di fronte al pubblico.
What my grandfather is saying, that if you want to crack the international market, you should play the piano accordion. See, the piano accordion...
una bella voce.
You've got an okay voice. It's okay.
Diventano la bellezza di tutto il mondo.
One guitar is useless, he says.
John, what's the one common ingredient of every successful rock clip? The music. Apart from the music. Vision. A smoke machine. John? Chase. I'm thinking moustache.
And you can see the entire music clip on YouTube if you just look that up. Yeah, so Valet, Glenn Wheatley.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Master's Apprentices, so I was very sad, actually.
Also, I just want to point out one thing that over the break as well, noticed that on the Late Show Facebook page and group, that a few people had been to Glen Rowan.
That's right.
Damn, I'm still in Glen Rowan.
Trying to find the wishing well, and didn't one of our listeners... Was it Ross McPhee?
That's right. He posted on the Champagne Comedy Podcast Facebook page, wondering if the wishing well was still there. Unfortunately, some recent floods mean that the entire place was actually undercover, so it was one giant wishing well. But our understanding is the wishing well is now a garden bed because Tino, one of our regular listeners, went there last year. And Prue, you were there very recently, but I understand you only just popped in to get a sausage roll or something.
That's right.
So, why?
I was driving to Canberra, and one does need to stop occasionally when you're driving to Canberra. So I went to Glenrowan, and unfortunately I was there far too early in the morning to visit any of the live attractions. But I had a very fine sausage roll.
Did you wash it down with any lynched lime?
No, but I had one of those embarrassing city folks in the country kind of moments where I was in the bakery and I thought, oh, I'll just be cool and I'll ask for a coffee. And the lady in the bakery goes, oh, what kind of coffee? And I was like, oh, yeah, flat white. I don't know if you know that, but anyway, it was great. Go to Glenrowan.
And you ended up with a soy macchiato, I imagine.
Yeah, decaf.
Yeah, decaf latte.
I've got the paper.
Daniel G and his program guide.
All right, so it's been 3 Saturdays since the last episode of The Late Show. Just to let you know briefly what you've missed the third day of the 6th test of the Ashes, which was a foregone conclusion anyway. We won it.
Yeah.
Australia, just to clarify. Channel 7 started showing Inspector Morse in repeats. And Channel 10 had American Graffiti and Robin Hood. Not the Kevin Costner one, the Patrick Bergeon one. Remember there were 2 Robin Hoods that came out in the same year?
The serious one.
Yes, well, yeah. I don't know. I can't remember seeing either of them.
Inspector Morse, that must have started so many decades ago.
well, funnily enough, there was recently in 1993, there was quite a lot of correspondence in the Green Guide as to what Inspector Morse's first name was.
It's Endeavour, is it not?
Well, we know that now, but they didn't know that then. Because, there is some sort of a prequel series now called Endeavour, isn't there?
There's a long-running prequel series that my mother is very fond of. Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen quite a bit of it. And how many people have to die in rural England?
It's got that fine Roger Allam in it, who is a very attractive man.
And, there's another Inspector Morse tonight, the Saturday the 28th of August. So this is all from Ross Warnicki's Critical Guide. On Channel 7 at 9:30 we've got Inspector Morse. Quoth Warnicki, another repeat, but who cares? Tonight, Morse and Lewis probe the murder of a deaf exam setter.
Ooh.
A deaf exam setter?
Yeah, apparently somebody who writes exams that are used all around the world and was finding his questions getting stolen.
Didn't Lewis get his own show as well at some point?
Yeah, he did, because John Thor died in about, I don't know, he died about 15 years ago or something, and so they wanted to keep it going, and so Lewis got a series.
And that's followed at 11:45 by U2's Zoo TV. You might remember this is the tour where they sort of performed up against the backdrop of satellite TV, live pre-recorded, weird satellite TV imagery.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where this was performed, but it was broadcast on Channel 7 and simulcast on 105.1 Triple M. Sorry, I have to say it like that. But actually, I should probably say it more like 105.1 Triple M.
I wonder if it was one of our local U2 concerts, because this was the year of all the big MCG concerts like Madonna.
It might not have been, because I think they actually came to Australia in November of '93. I think tickets were about to go on sale at the time of this episode. So I assume they must have been doing this for quite a while, and Channel 7 got the concert of it.
You know that concert series, each city they went to, they rang up a famous person in that city and talked to them. You know who they rang up in Adelaide? Do you remember this, Daniel? Who they rang up in Adelaide?
Yes, I do, yes.
Graham Corns.
He was coach of the Adelaide Crows at the time.
He was. Yeah, that's the only celebrity in Adelaide, Graham Corns. They couldn't even get Wilsey. had to settle for Graham Corns.
On Channel 9, we've got Hey Hey It's Saturday, guest hosted by Stephen Jacobs, who would have been in All Together Now at the time. Now, should we call him Stephen Jacobs, or should we acquiesce to him now being called Stevie Jacobs, as he now seems to be called as a Today Show weather person?
Isn't he a bit old for Stevie?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, like, you'd start off as Stevie and then you'd go to Steve, wouldn't you?
I don't don't think I've ever heard of him being called Steve.
Yeah.
But
Steve,
up until I think about a month ago, he was doing pre-recorded breakfast on a few AM radio stations around Australia.
And now he's gone.
You could tell it was pre-recorded. He wasn't that good.
So interesting that this man had far more integrity when he was on Altogether Now.
Don't forget, he did Just Kidding.
Oh, yes. I've tried to erase that from my memory. Okay, so on Hey Hey, we've got the Sharp performing Scratch My Back from their album This Is the Sharp.
Not Skivvies Are Back?
Well, yeah. Will there be a parody on Season 2, Episode 15? I'll never tell. We also had Stephen's Altogether Now co-star Jane Hall and actor Lisa Hensley playing Celebrity Head. We had Jimmy Barnes performing his soul ballad from his album Heat called Right By Your Side. We also had Ariana Richards from Jurassic Park. She was one of the kids. For Red Faces, we had Annie Jones, who at the time was starring in the sitcom Newlyweds and was soon to appear in another series we'll hear about on The Late Show called Snowy. And weirdly enough, we also had Bruno Lucia in character as Wayne Chicky Babe Lovett. Which, it's kind of apt for Red Faces, I think, considering, Bruno's playing a talent scout character. We also had Debbie Byrne performing Memory from Cats. Now, she played Grisabella in the 1985 production and would later on in 1993 reprise the role. So, again, this might be a desperate ploy for tickets, similar to U2. And then to top everything off, we had someone by the name of Wayne Jury performing a song called Walking on Glass. Now, I could not find anything on the internet about what this song sounds like. It's not even on Spotify. I don't know if that's in solidarity with Neil Young, but it was produced by Vander and Young. And basically, according to his bio, he was a protege of John Brewster of the Angels. And later on co-wrote a top 10 hit by Alicia Rome from 1999 called Search My Heaven. Oh, God. And that's all I know about him. If you want to listen to the thing, you can pay the however much it is for the Hey Hey website.
That is one of the most cheesiest pop songs, Search My Heaven.
It is. I managed to find that on YouTube.
Also, look up One of Us Has Changed. That's even worse.
Take note of that.
Yeah.
When I'm next at the Salvos, says Kim.
No, I did pick up. I went to the Salvos today. I picked up Baby Animals for $1. I love this album. I used to have this on cassette. So anyway.
Good find.
And that is for our spin-off podcast of What Crap Have You Found at the Op Shop?
I'll sign me up for that.
All right. So following all of that frivolity on Hey Hey, we had the film Trading Places. Says Warneke, watchable 1983 comedy. With Ralph Bellamy betting brother Don Amici that a poor con man, Eddie Murphy, could run their business affairs just as well as their clever nephew-cum-financial manager, Dan Aykroyd. So Aykroyd and Murphy swapped lifestyles with not always predictable results. Warneke really seems to like that. Ross Warneke seems to really love that word watchable because he called a movie on SBS that last episode.
You know what we haven't really done?
Warneke!
Yeah, he deserves it for that watchable.
Welcome back, Warneke.
Get a thesaurus.
Yeah.
I mean, especially it's Trading Places. It's a politically incorrect classic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's legitimately good. You can use words like good to describe it.
All right, on Channel 10 at 8:30, we had Rocky 2. Says Warneke, this 1979 episode is the least imaginative of the series, with Rocky suffering the inevitable fall after, and this is a spoiler alert from me, his victory in the original film.
Oh, no way.
With Sly Stallone and Talia Shire.
Well, I guess if you're comparing it to the one with the robot butler, it is somewhat less imaginative.
That robot butler was key to that film.
Stallone's new version has cut the robot butler out, I hear. I can't believe people aren't rioting over this.
I'm rioting.
You're rioting right now.
Over on SBS at 9:30, we had the film The Girlfriends. Says Warneke, this 1955 film was perhaps the first to draw attention to Italian director Michelangelo Antonioni. Its central character, played by Eleonora Drago Rossi, returns to Turin and becomes bound up in the lives of 4 of her old friends. A perceptive drama, he says. Or as the SBS marketing department put it a lot more succinctly, fashioning relationships in a world of high fashion. And that brings us to the ABC. So the lead-in, still, even after 3 weeks, it's Birds of a Feather. What'll I do? This episode's titled 30-something. Warnocky just bills it as Sharon fears her future will be as bleak as her past. Aren't we all?
So she was only 30-something in that? They always seem so old to me when I was watching that show.
Well, I suppose it beats being Dorian, who's still a dirty cat. I've got to crowbar it in somewhere. That's followed at 10 by The Late Show. Again, week after week, I think he's just been recycling the same listing. Satire and sketch comedy from Melbourne's DGen. Now, that's followed at 11 o'clock by a biopic of sorts. Now, it's called The Sound and the Silence. Can any of you work out who that might be profiling? The Sound and the Silence?
Beethoven?
Oh, Simon and Oates. I mean, no, Garfunkel. Garfunkel and...
Simon and Garfunkel, Hall and Oates.
Yeah. Sorry, I was also thinking of that comedy routine, you know, the Garfunkel and Oates.
Garfunkel and Oates, yeah.
So
I do like where your heads are going with this, but unfortunately it's not musical. It's the Alexander Graham Bell.
Yeah. Ding, ding.
New story of the inventor of the telephone boasts a top cast. John Bach, Oscar winner Brenda Fricker, and Ian Bannon. And
Ian Bannon.
See, I don't know who I haven't looked up who any of these people are.
Brenda Fricker is from Brides of Christ.
Okay.
Yep. Ian Bannon's a very fine Scottish actor. I think he would be dead by now, but he's in lots of stuff.
So after that at 12:30 is the ATVI News, and then at 1 o'clock Rage with guest programmer Tammy Sidorenko, who I was rushing to prep for this thing, so I don't know who Tammy Sidorenko is a member of, if you'll just let me quickly Google. Okay, on that baffling note, I'm going to stop now. Let's get on with the episode.
Thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate it. I will mention there is a competition later on in the episode, so stay tuned if you're still listening to us, please. It'll be worth it. Competition not maybe, but the prizes yes.
The competition will be explained further on.
Now it's time to break down and overanalyze Season 2, Episode 11 of The Late Show, broadcast Saturday, August 28, 1993. And as Daniel had mentioned earlier, returning after a 3-week break, they've got the opening with Rob, Mick and Tommy G are playing a game. And what type of game is it? It is...
Let's get the Marbo game.
Well, it's a funny one, this one, but I will say that the game itself was an amazing creation from the production team.
I love the teetering layers of Monopoly boards and all the stuff on it. Yeah, essentially they've turned the Marbo land rights situation into a board game. It's multiple layers of Monopoly boards with cranes and all sorts of other things on it. And yeah, they're kind of struggling to play the game because it's very complicated. And that seems to be the joke. Wow, this land rights legislation is really complicated. Mm-hmm. And then they say, you know what, they cut over to someone called Wayne, and I'm thinking, who's this guy Wayne? And it was only when I watched the final credits of the show that I realized, oh, it's Wayne Goss, the Premier of Queensland. Okay, so that would have been a reference probably most people would have got in 1993. In 2022, totally baffling.
It's an excellent cameo. He really puts forward that line. It's not that easy, I can tell you now.
So I looked up what the background to this was, and some of you might remember towards the end of 1996, very early in John Howard's prime ministership, there was a decision in the case Wick Peoples versus Queensland. You might remember the Wick decision. And basically there's a Indigenous group called the Wick in Queensland, and they were fighting to get the rights to their traditional lands. And the issue was and this sort of started off in the early 90s, this issue, that at the same time, an organisation called Comalco wanted to build an aluminium smelter and a power station on their land. So the case really about WIC was about whether, who had the rights to the land, the mining company or the WIC people themselves. And I found an article on the Australian Financial Review website, which is dated the 20th of August 1993, so just a week or so before this episode. And it opens like this. Queensland Premier Wayne Goss has fought hard in recent weeks to find a way to allow a Comalco aluminium smelter and power station project to proceed without derailing the land rights process. And so that's basically what his difficulty is. He wants both these things. He wants the mining and he wants the land rights. And that's why it's so complicated. And that's what the sketch is about, basically.
That puts a whole new meaning on his appearance as well, because considering he's trying to have a bob each way, I'm kind of surprised that he would have agreed to even be in the sketch.
Yeah, I mean, also, I don't know where this was filmed. I assume it was filmed in Melbourne, so,
It kind of looks like it was shot in a hotel room, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where it's shot or anywhere. It could have been, maybe they all flew up to Queensland, don't know. But, I guess for a Melbourne-based show to get the premiere of another state is probably a bit of an undertaking.
After the opening titles, we have the opening remarks, and Mick is solo on stage. This is probably the first time he's done this. And
hurrah!
And he does have to express some feelings.
We love you. Not a cheap love, not a nightclub kind of a love, but a real deep. They're not buying it, face, at all. They're not buying it at all.
But he did try to set up the fact that Tony is not around because he's heartbroken over Joe Bailey getting the sacking from Sale of the Century. And he just rattles off some names that Tony had dated, including Jeremy Sims from Chances.
Mick helpfully reminds us that he was the one with the silicone implants in the buttocks.
Yes.
I like the way he says Tony was a real chick magnet.
With his marsupial-like good looks.
Michael Jackson does come out of the backstage area because there are allegations. He's in the news for all that stuff, I should say. That stuff.
Basically, Michael Jackson comes out wearing Billy Ray Cyrus's red overshirt by the looks of things.
Yeah.
That's all I was reminded of when I saw Tony in the makeup. It's not a bad get-up apart from the red shirt.
Well, there's a joke. There's a joke about how there's going to be a Pepsi ad featuring a young white Australian male, and I think Mick says, "I hope it's not going to be the little fat kid." So that's a joke of the era. But I like the line how they kind of lean into the fact that the plastic makeup isn't amazing, and they talk about Michael Jackson's plastic surgery, and he said, "Well, actually, I've had plastic surgery to look more like Tony Martin." So that's kind of a nice way of dealing with that one.
I thought the Boone walk was very funny.
Yeah,
it's worthwhile just for that.
But when he says, "You're a feisty one, Mick Malloy," that was one of those other things that we always used to quote. And the fact that he was in his bed with the llama, the 5 monkeys, and the bones of the elephant man, which is very tasteless now, but as a teenager, that was something we used to find amusing. And it's a funny story. I was curious, did he actually own the bones of the elephant man? No. He bid for them back in 1987, and he offered $1 million for them, and basically he was obsessed with them, and he spent lots of time with them when he visited London because they were stored at the London Hospital Medical College. And basically they said, no, we're not going to exploit the situation. We're not going to sell them to Michael Jackson. But then it just kind of alluded to this story that he actually owned them. So that's what I read. But I remember reading all about that in Smash Hits and all those magazines. And, as a teenager, we just found it amusing. Nowadays, it's kind of sad, really, isn't it?
It's good to know that Smash Hits was the place to go for your Elephant Man content.
Michael Jackson was very interested in sort of, the weird and horrifying and the occult. My other half used to work at Foyles, this very well-known London bookshop on Charing Cross Road. And apparently Michael Jackson came in one day with several of his minders and just went straight to the horror section and basically did a sort of a trolley dash around the horror section and just bought several £1,000s worth of this stuff and paid with a check, right? Oh. The check bounced.
Oh no. Was it one of those really big checks as we'll hear about later on?
Yeah. Well, you'd think that would have tipped off the foil staff member, wouldn't you? But this was the early 2000s, and so people were still taking checks. And they thought, well, it's Michael Jackson, of course he's got the money, but he didn't, because he sort of famously ended up kind of bankrupt towards the end of his life, didn't he?
Yeah.
The check bounced, essentially.
Just as well they didn't accept his check for the bones of the Elephant Man.
I think he still had money in the 80s, not so much in the early 2000s.
Just quickly returning back to the sketch, I think what really makes the bit for me is Tony as Michael Jackson saying, "Do I look like some kind of weirdo to you?" And Mick's cheeky look to camera, not saying a frigging word.
And now it's over to the news desk with Tommy G.
I'll go straight through the bullet stories, really, which are Joe Bailey sacking hits Pakistan. Sorry, I couldn't even get through that one. Paul Keating meets Bronwyn Bishop with the Chinese Dragon. US Air Force drop urgently needed food to central Bosnia, and see Pizza Hut deliveries happen.
And again, they spent ABC, well, I assume they spent ABC money on a, what do we reckon, 10-second gag? Like it was the actual members of the Late Show, parachuting, holding prop pizza boxes.
8 cents a day.
Exactly.
And back to Michael Jackson stories, saying Michael Jackson caught in child abuse scandal, and it's odd that he started his tour in
Bangkok.
Yeah, cancelled all his publicity rounds, but had a pre-recorded message.
You don't have a clip of that?
No.
Okay. We're not playing that.
As far I thought
Bangkok
was the only decent grab from that story.
Pretty much, like we lived through it all, all the allegations and all the jokes about what he was up to, and I mean, we still don't know if it's true or not.
NASA searching for Observer space probe as they've lost it, and strange signals were coming in, sounding like...
G'day, it's John Blackman from Telecom Mobile Net here. Who's that?
Number 7.
Still funny.
Yeah.
Still funny.
And people claim sabotage after it found intelligent life like the Macca's logo on Mars. Bruce McAvaney is in the studio after arriving from Stuttgart. Now, this is just brilliant.
The doyen.
Yeah, there's that word again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get a Jane Kennedy, What a Beautiful Woman as Bruce goes through the runners and riders on the Late Show cast, which is good. Then towards the end he threatens to start listing random German cities, which is very much in Bruce's wheelhouse.
I do love this whole thing. It's like, I remember everything. And then he comes off all of it, including I'm not sure, and then the ad that comes next. It's very funny.
I just love the fact that when they go to play the clip and he goes, "Oh no, I remember everything I say."
It's such a great conceit of the whole sketch.
Yeah, and then when he pauses, it's like, "You're right." He goes, "Oh no, it's just some bullshit John Walker's talking."
Bruce McAvaney, thank you.
Absolutely pleasing. Tommy,
thank you for joining us on the Late Show.
It's been so good, and you guys, well, they're doing so well. I mean, there's Tony Martin, Jason Stevens, Mick Malloy,
Bruce.
Santo, hasn't he had a good year?
Bruce.
Tommy Grinder, Rob Sitch, the veteran.
Thank you, Bruce.
Lucy,
Bruce, please.
Judith, Lucy, she burst onto the scene.
She did indeed.
She just come on. Jane Kenny, what a beautiful woman.
Please, Bruce, enough. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please. To politics now.
Tommy. I found Stuttgart on you.
Thank you, Bruce, please.
Yeah, it's a wonderful live dynamic, and Rob being his cheeky old self and going on and on, as Bruce would say. It's great. And you can see it on the Barge Ass Olden Days DVD. I forget whether that's an actual Esther or a Easter egg. But it's definitely there.
Other bits were Paul Keating planning to buy a new table for the lodge, and it had a big question mark on it because it was a $20,000 table from Thailand.
Oh, sorry, not Bangkok. No, like Thailand table, perfectly legit. Bangkok table. Now I'm not so sure.
So, and yeah, he goes to demonstrate that all their furniture is 100% Australian and results in his desk collapsing and seeing Tommy G in his underderps.
Footy socks he's got on and no trousers.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you like to see Tommy G's legs, this is the episode to watch.
Yeah, this is all
more awakenings.
Before the Zoom meetings.
Yeah. A Japanese PM has apologised for the country's wartime record, especially to Daihatsu Charade.
I won't hear anything bad said about my first car.
They can apologise for the Toyota Corolla 1984 model, which was my first car, because that thing would never start in the winter. And it was a manual.
But some billionaire property developer was arrested for perverting the course of architecture, which showed a really hideous design.
Bruno Grollo. Yeah.
That's him, Bruno Grollo, yeah. Was past tense, in the past. Salvage work on German boat U-534, where they find a mint-condition Kraftwerk album. That is, yeah. And it is that time of year where Jurassic Park has just hit the cinemas or is about to hit the cinemas. The exclusive clip playing showing the $20 million special effects. And it was just all stop motion, same sound effect. It was brilliantly done.
It's worth mentioning that there's quite a lot of stop motion in this episode. And it's really, like I think Daniel was saying before about the parachuting gag, like there's quite a lot of money spent on this episode to very poor effect. I know this is a spoiler, but like they do all these Rice stop motion ads and then they do this Jurassic Park thing, which is cute and cheap, but they also do that really expensive Sega game for the Oz Brothers.
Yeah.
That would have cost $1,090,000, right? It wasn't easy to mock up a computer game in those days.
Well, I remember reading a thing, like an article on The Late Show, where they were talking about the Rice, because they're parodies of ads that cost like millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And they said, we did it for some ridiculously low amount of money. I don't know whether it was just they got the intern out the back to glue chunks of rice together slowly. But supposedly the big deal was that the real ads had cost like a huge amount of money. And the Late Show versions, which were, 80% as good, cost 20% as much. So they probably had at this stage, they probably had a bunch of fans who were willing to do stuff for cheap and or free, as long as, they got to sit in the audience.
Yeah, they were incredible rice sculptures that they created. Some of them were so detailed.
They definitely put in a lot of work to the rice. But yeah, I just remembered one of the few things I do remember from the 90s is that story that, supposedly not as expensive as it looked.
I do love this Jurassic Park stop motion, though. It really reminds me of how fucking great it was in 1993 when that movie came out. Like, it's still one of my favourite movies. Like, it just blew everyone away. Like, it's so grouse. And it just reminded me of, I remember those times.
I've definitely worn out my copy.
There were no farmyard ducks in the original like there are in the Late Show parody. Or somebody just moving a Lacoste bag across the screen.
Or the price tag on the dinosaur, that was good too.
Well, they have to return it afterwards. So.
And the Lacoste stuff as well.
Exactly.
I just want to say, Razia is coming! One of several Gabbo-style teasers we get across this episode, which I love this. What is Razia?
And when Razia appears. We'll get there. We'll get there, everyone.
Now it is a commercial, Sunbland Rice, which is the parody of these ads.
There's one food that's as natural as corn on the cob, with far less sugar. It's as cheap as chips, with a lot less fat. It's as convenient as a can of beans, with a lot less salt, and it's as easy to cook as a boiled egg, with no cholesterol at all.
Now, is that voiced by the Good Life dude?
No, it's not Richard Bryars, but I think it's an Aussie actor that you heard heaps in the 90s on ads or somewhere. It's really familiar.
I forget his name, but I think he does the intro on Irrational Fear podcast.
Yeah,
that talks about naughty words like Brexit and Section 44, which is really starting to date that podcast as well. They're really old references by now.
Oh.
I forget the name of the voiceover artist, unfortunately.
Imagine if it was the guy who does the SBS, the old promos. Tonight on
Robbie
SBS.
McGregor.
Yeah, that's him.
Adult themes.
Adult humour.
My country nuts.
The thing that got me when they put this ad on, because just before they had Jurassic Park, which for some reason in my head took place 10 years ago, but then this rice ad is like, oh yeah, when you were a kid, rice was weird and foreign. Like there was so much food that just wasn't part of Australia's palates. And they had to run ads to say, hey, rice. You can eat rice, you guys. Like, lots of people are like, well, rice, I don't know about that.
Yeah, but then for like the next 15 years, we were all completely botching it in the saucepan. We had no idea how to cook it.
Had a rice cooker. Obviously, for myself, my mum's Asian, and my dad used to be a chef, and we just had rice pretty much every day. So to me, this was just like, yeah, why are you advertising rice? My daughter saw this. Yeah, exactly. And my daughter saw this ad, and she's like, I want this video on my iPad. I want to have a screenshot. So I passed down the love of rice through the generations. She hasn't seen the later ones that they show in this episode. But apparently this rice ad won a lot of awards, and the sculptor is called Justin Robson, if you look at some of the comments on the YouTube ads. And he had to do this obviously frame by frame and very painstakingly assembled. I wonder if he had anything to do with this, with the actual Late Show's version, if it was so difficult to do.
I wonder if they were ones that made the cutting room floor. And they got cobbled together for a Late Show joke.
Oh, imagine the one that's further down the track. Oh,
yeah, not alert. That whale one. Spoiler alerts again.
Yeah. Speaking of
it's a good sort of joke with this first rice ad parody, which is that, gee, there's not much you can do with it in stop motion. You can make a pile. You can make a bigger pile. You can spread it out.
And sprinkle some parsley on top.
Not as versatile as we thought.
It's muckraking time, and Mick and Jace are in the shit. So, sitting on the lounge, handcuffed, sitting next to their lawyer, who just oddly happens to look
officer.
like... Parole officer, yep.
I wrote this down. Terry Johnson, their parole officer, who I think is Michael Hirsch. Is that Michael Hirsch?
Yeah, well,
very well-dressed parole officer.
Yeah. Looking very serious there.
Yeah, looking very serious and bored, and you also see later on, you see him just reading a magazine on his own.
I know, that was great.
They're in trouble for staging a protest outside Channel 9 studios after the firing of Joe Bailey from Sale of the Century, and they do a classy reenactment.
Now, I've got an important question to ask you, and I want you to think about it, right? Take your time. Would you like to leave us, or would you like to come back again next week? Here's some thinking time. Well,
I'll stay.
I don't think you will. Okay, thanks for joining us.
So that's it?
No, that's not it. No one leaves here empty-handed. You, of course, get your complimentary Sale of the Century board game. You'd like a shot at that?
Yes, please.
Okay, take your pick. What would you like?
Clubs.
Clubs? Oh, I'm sorry. The payout was under hearts. See you next time.
And then, all finishing on that. I don't know how much of a cliche it is of doing the above-the-head wave like a dickhead at the end of the program. I can't think of any other program apart from Sale of the Century where they do that.
I know, it's a real dislocate your shoulder kind of move.
Pretty much.
Wow.
It was great wave acting from Robin Jen.
Well, they had to do it above the head because you wouldn't see it as the camera panned out that very, very long set. Right?
Yeah, you're right. It does. Yeah, it would look even worse if you were just in front of your face like that.
Back to the protest outside Channel 9. Now, they had at the protest Pete Smith, Shirley Strawn and Lou Richards. Now, this is... and featured on our Jason Stevens podcast, there was a snippet that Jason did talk about with the protest.
We basically, that was a typical, sketch idea which we, made on the run, where we just basically thought of that idea, wrote it, and then just raced out to Channel 9 and organised, some extras to turn out with placards. I think we may have told Channel 9 that we're doing it. We couldn't go in, into their premises, but we sort of hung out on the other side of the boom gate. I think we may have given them the warning that we're doing it, but it was kind of quite sort of, that was the pace of the show. We just, turn up and film and hope for the best,
Ask for forgiveness later.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was a really excellent part of that interview you guys did with Jason. I love that because I actually think that this is the greatest muckraking they ever did. And it's got that real element of spontaneity and magic that just happens. Like some of the bits that, Shirl and the Pete Smith amazing lines that come, they seem like, wow, just serendipity. And, I think it's an incredible thing. And also, I know you've used this gag a lot with the whole crazy anti-vax situation in Melbourne, but it really is a great example of how protests can escalate, and like the look on the face of the guy in the gate office, like, okay, is anything on fire now? And then the humor of the extras who go, "You're going home in the back of a TV van." Like, really great.
Well, supposedly, I'm not sure where I heard this or whether I actually heard it myself, but supposedly they put a call out on Triple R that morning that they wanted people to go down to Channel 9 for a sketch. And so when you look at the crowd, it's very much the sort of Triple R student audience that has got nothing better to do on like a Thursday morning or whatever.
Yeah. One of them is wearing a T-shirt that says 100% Munt Art.
Yeah.
So Triple R.
That's a Triple R listener's T-shirt.
Yeah, there's someone who got in touch with us on Twitter and Facebook, Leonard Puglia, and he says that he was one of the people in the crowd. He was the one holding up the Etu Ridge sign, and he didn't actually know what that meant. It's a reference to Julius Caesar, which the original source is Etu Brute, as in that's you, Brutus. You're basically Julius Caesar says it, and he recognises him as an assassin. I had to Wikipedia that, but anyway, he basically at the time was just asked to hold up this sign, and so he definitely was one of the crowd that was just asked to come on down. No, that's the wrong game show.
Well, the Channel 9 studios back then as well were really central. Richmond, they were just like off. Is it off Bridge Road?
Street.
Yeah, it's really like people live nearby. You just walk around the corner. It's not some sort of industrial complex like they are now.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Like I recently did a bit of a walk in that area, and it is so residential. Like they've turned Bendigo Street into flats.
They put, I don't know where Channel 9. Oh no, Docklands. I do know because my train stops outside it. Yeah, but when they
the only studios that would actually be there would probably be just the news.
Yeah, I think it is just the news stuff there, and Channel 7's just down there as well, and that's just their news and football stuff as well. But yeah, Bendigo Street was a huge. I think was it a brewery or a bean factory?
It was a piano factory. It was a piano factory, then a soup factory, or vice versa, and then it was Channel 9, and now it's apartments. I love how on the other side of the boom gate you've got all these GTV9 stuff just kind of standing around, just going, what the hell's going on out here? Because it's really weird, because it sort of looks semi-official because they've got actual real 9 personalities like Pete Smith and Lou Richards and Shirl kind of getting involved in it. But I love all the stuff with Pete Smith because, clearly a lot of that's improvised. But there's like, oh, okay, why don't we make it look as if we're going to roll Pete Smith's car? So you've got them all on each side kind of rocking his car back and forth. And then he kind of sticks his head out the window and goes, if you don't stop doing this, we'll start running Don Lane shows again, right? Yeah. which is a really nice kind of improvised line. And there's all the stuff, the burning effigy and You know, I like the bit they've obviously said to the extras, "Oh, you know, can you look as if you're crying?" And half of them are laughing in the background. It's sort of
Pete Smith is absolute gold in this. Like that line you were just saying, Alison. Straight after that, he goes, "Did you get that last gag?"
Yeah,
That's what makes it. Yeah.
And also, I love this funny little visual bit where Pete Smith is on a megaphone. And, you know, he's like saying some really funny stuff like, "Joe, like all our people except me will get another opportunity." At that moment, Jason has a microphone up against the megaphone, which is just quite stupid.
You can tell why it hasn't been fully released because of the usage of the Beatles in actually,
all we are saying is give Joe a chance.
And so if Mad Men have to pay $500,000 to release a snippet for their episode, imagine if it did it for the Late Show.
Yeah, and plus the guys who own the rights to You're Going Home in the back of the divvy van.
They're very expensive.
Oh, hell yeah. Actually, I will point out, though, and this is just an observation, Daniel, if you want to have a look, not now, but in the next episode, report to me next episode, when they're doing You're Going Home in the back of a divvy van, there's a guy who is really going hammer and tongs with his clapping.
He's sort of making gestures towards the van.
Yeah, and you see him for a split second. He's got red hair, curly red hair, right? He looks like the guy who did the Bart Simpson jump on stage thing at Startled.
Yes.
Oh.
And he also slaps the divvy van as it drives off, doesn't he?
So if you can go back to that episode where Mick and Tony are doing their thing, and then when you're saying that it was totally random because they looked a bit off, I reckon it's the same guy.
I don't, because the skinny runt that got down under dirt.
But this guy's wearing a lumberjack shirt.
He was like about 20 kilos.
I think I kind of remember him,
Skinny runt.
I'm such a fan of that poor guy. Not.
You've opened a really interesting can of worms here. Yeah, I'm going to get the tapes out and investigate.
It's the Ginger Gate.
Yeah. That's what this podcast is about. We're completely destroying everything, over analysing where we don't even need to. So that's the reason why you're listening to this. So anyway, that's just a thought, Daniel. So have a look.
Ooh, 17 minutes to Razia.
Thank you.
I don't think the timing's accurate, by the way. Just
pedantry.
Oh, that is my favourite bit of pedantry.
And we're moving on. And it's another commercial. Sun Bland again.
Which food provides protein to more people in the world than fish? Which food is higher in fibre than fresh fruit? Which food can be carried by a car? Which food can be made to look like a computer? Which food... Oh, now you're just being silly. Rice seems to have a mind of its own.
I do love Rob's RP. You know, ooh, which food can be made to look like a computer?
And now it's time for a new segment because Charlie the Wonder Dog had to go elsewhere in the previous episode. And it is time for...
I don't know why, but I just was not expecting that.
Okay, now press the button, Matt. Can you press the button? And
exactly.
See, I was expecting and then it's gonna like that. Yeah, exactly. That's what I got. Yeah.
Oh, why does that come as a surprise?
Now, I've got to admit, sort of seeing the titles of Bargearse like for the first time and sort of seeing like it's all cut together very well, and basically seeing a fat guy fighting crime, and then I think the audience pretty much gets it as soon as the title Bargearse comes accompanied by Lucky Grills barging through a door.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
You know what you're in for.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like most of my memories of Bargearse are clearly from towards the end, where the second the music starts, the audience goes nuts, And to see it like the first time where people are clearly just sort of going, what is this? Why is this hefty guy burling around? And then, once Barge Ass comes up, they go, oh, okay, yeah, now I get it.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw this that I found it a bit confusing because I had never heard the expression barge ass for a fat person. It was just a slang term that had never permeated my consciousness. So it sort of took me a couple of episodes to actually, okay, right, this is a word for fat people. I get it now.
It was a Melbourne word for fat people.
Not an Adelaide word.
Well, if you watched one of the best bits of the second best or the first best of the D-Generation that they ran during their break, or at least it's on the VHS/DVD, Santo actually says barge ass in one of the clips from the D-Generation.
He does. Yeah, he does.
Before his head explodes.
It's definitely a word like I've heard all my life. For me.
No, I'm the same. First time I've heard of it was through this medium.
So
the Late Show expands your vocabulary of
Doyen, barges.
I was just going to say though, I don't know if I'm just speaking for myself, but watching Barge Ass for the first time, I was like making the link between like with Rush and with Bluey, they were two shows that completely remade for our generation. So I'd never seen them before. So for the Late Show, that was like a brand new original artifact. I was fascinated. And to this day, I don't know what Rush is like in a full episode or Bluey because I've never watched that either.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah.
I've seen episodes of Bluey when Channel 7 showed them like later in the 90s. And they were very similar to Barge Ass, but just a lot slower. Like it's not a serious cop drama. It is kind of
It couldn't be serious with someone like Lucky Grills in the lead role.
No, it's a comedy. It's just you're sitting there going, how does this go for an hour? It's just like going on and on. Barge Ass gets it done in like 3 minutes. That's all we need. But I was really surprised. I kind of thought, they've clearly taken some radically different show. But no, it's a fat cop and a lot of Melbourne backlot.
The first episode of Barge Ass, where it's called Where's Me Bloody Pizza, does reflect on the actual first episode of Bluey, which is what it was called. And the first episode was called The First Bloody Day. So at least it has the hallmarks of that. So Barge Ass, this episode is starring Christopher Skase. And for the nerds out there, hop onto YouTube or whatever audio streaming service you prefer. If you want the theme song for it, for Barge Ass, it is Brass in Action by Keith Mansfield.
And such an excellent choice too. I kind of feel like it might have been the hand of Tony Martin that picked this one because it's such a great choice for action cop drama. Yeah, sort of. It really sets the scene very well for the 70s cop drama.
So, well, here's is where the teaser comes in that came out during the week. So the scene that we all know from Barge Ass is this, actually. I'll play the Barge Ass version.
It isn't easy. There's so many fat jokes.
Haven't you learnt your lines yet?
It isn't easy. There's so many fat jokes to remember.
For God's sake, put the script away. Let's just ad-lib for a while.
Yeah, all right. Couldn't hurt. Even John English wouldn't do this stuff.
Pizza van hijacked by Christopher Skase. Barge Ass?
Yeah?
Bad news. Your pizza's been stolen.
Hell. Better hurry, Sarge. It's probably on its way to Mallorca. Out of the way, extras!
Here's the original, okay? So same scene, and all I ended up doing is taking about 10 seconds out for Barge Ass, but here's the full bit.
Keeping yourself amused?
Only just. What's this? Disciplinary action.
That's Bluey's personal file. I wouldn't go through it if I were you.
I think I want to. How did he ever get into that much trouble?
Doing things his own way. Does them pretty well, too. Half a dozen branches still ask for Bluey on special jobs.
But they don't want him back.
same sound.
Bluey!
Yeah?
Young Dave McIntyre's been killed.
Hell!
Oh, that's great.
Out of the way, extras. Sorry.
I really love that bit where he's like, what was the feed line? It was like, Bluey, your pizza's been stolen.
Hell.
Yeah, that hell. I'm a real fan of that. I love that. But to hear that it's from the original.
And the typewriter too, or the fax or whatever it was called back in the day.
Telex.
Telex
machine. Yeah.
Yeah, so that scene was in there. So it wasn't just them simply splicing in Pizza Hijack by Christopher Skase. They did have a bit where it was the telex coming in.
I think you're right, Tony, about how it being really slow paced. I mean, that scene just was agonisingly slow in comparison to today's television.
Oh my God,
It's interesting that Tony doesn't quite have the voice down pat either in this first episode. There's bits where it's clearly Bargearse, and then there's bits where you think, oh, it's Tony Martin bunging on a voice. Whereas later on, it's like he's much more into, he's got it settled down.
Speaking of settling down, how would you like to settle down with a box set of Bluey? Here's the competition.
Enjoy the slow-paced cop hijinks of Bluey.
I take it all back. Bluey was awesome.
To be fair, it does also have there as an extra Bargearse.
Yes, it does. So this box set, we've got one to give away thanks to mygeekculture.com.au, which, disclaimer, I'm associated with the website. It's an Australian niche pop culture website. And they are donating a box set of Bluey, which is available through Crawford's DVD. You can either pay $70 for it or do the following to win this. And that is, I want you to record your favourite Bargearse quote, kind of like what we did in the first season where we got people to record quotes. Like, I'll play a little snippet.
Careful, there's 3 cubicles and one of them contains a pong. Oh, my eyes burning. Game over.
You just go back to the previous episodes. Go to episode 20 and you'll hear the entire thing. So just record a quote into your phone, and bonus, do your best noise as well. This is going to be the most filthiest competition.
Oh, this is going to do me in.
Yeah, so because what I want to do is I want to turn it into a remix. So episode 40, our final episode of the Champagne Comedy Podcast, I want to, kind of like what I did with Franco and Competition Further.
And I got a nice cup of tea with sauce.
Discussed that yesterday. I was on a bus trip to Bow.
One sits down, one stands up.
Yeah, you get the idea. So all you need to do, record your favourite Bluey quote. Can be short, could be long, whatever, and then a separate audio file, do your own noise. I'm sorry, Prue's going to lose it.
But yeah, there's so many golden lines in Bargearse.
Yeah.
So this should not be hard for you to find a fave.
No, and send them through to champagnelateshow@gmail.com. By episode 40 of the podcast, I'll have that as a montage, a new song, basically. I'm going to create a new song with those quotes. So that's all thanks to mygeekculture.com.au. This box set of Bluey, I'm holding it up on the screen, and it's a podcast. As well, okay, that's the major prize winner. And just as an incentive as well, we've got a second prize winner is that if you want to update your champagne edition of your Best Bits of the Late Show DVD, including Bargearse in the olden days, I've got one here unopened, so because they're borderline out of print.
As our original 2001 versions of the DVDs start to get more and more scratched, these are going to become a rarity. So
you have until episode 39 of the Champagne Comedy Podcast to get your entries in, because I've now got to put it all together into a new song, which I'll reveal in episode 40. So get onto it right now.
Well, just a final gag is quite funny with the...
Oh, Sarge, you can't light up.
Yeah. Such cut. And also, there's a great, well, it's not great at all, actually, but it's the worst man spread you'll ever see in the history of television. The leg actually cocked up on the table.
When he's on the phone to the pizzeria.
Yeah, that sets the tone for it.
And we have a live sketch, and the Oz brothers are back.
Their second outing.
So Bernie's about to have a knee operation, and there's no news article about it. So they've had a gutful. They're over it. Unbelievable. Yeah. So they call Booney's doctor, who is in the middle of the operation, of an operation, and they've always had a gutful, so they do turn on the news to see if there's any reports.
The index remains unsettled, whilst market analysts believe that the reaction to the budget will settle down next week.
Booney now.
Now to Somalia and the wanted Mogadishu warlord General Aidid
I'm going to ring this bloke up.
UN
I'm going to ring this bloke up.
his capture.
I'm going to ring this bloke up.
Spokesman for the UN forces said... Yes?
Yeah, mate, it's Neville Oz here. Are you going to do a story about Booney's knee operation?
No, I don't believe we are.
Oh, that is unbelievable.
This is the national news.
Hey, you having a go at me?
Is he having a go at you?
I've had a gutful.
Does anyone know the newsreader's name? Because he was a good sport.
See, there's a Graham Evans in the credits. I'm not sure if that's the newsreader or not.
That kind of rings a bell, actually.
Very, very sure it's an actor, though. It's not an actual ABC newsreader.
I think my favourite bits were just... they're not even really coherent bits of script, are they? They're just like...
No.
They like certain words, like PhD and... and they just sort of repeat things over and over, and then they just talk about chisels and dragon. It's just very much emphasising one word.
They're not very articulate characters, are they? They just like, you're either a dead set legend or you're a girl, right?
Yeah.
Who was the one they said he wore a moustache? It didn't suit him, but he wore it anyway.
What was that?
We see. I put together the list. So yeah, the dead set legends were Dennis Lilly, Dougie Walters, George Negus, Jack Thompson. I think it was Jack Thompson who the moustache didn't suit him all the time. John Bertrand, Weary Dunlop, the Bush Tucker Man, Les Hiddens, and Chisels and Dragon. Bow.
Is there any wonder? Bow. That was Todd. Yeah.
The streets are cold.
Bow. That was Todd.
Mate,
that was Todd.
I'm sorry. Mate.
Are you old enough?
Neville, please.
Well, I feel like an observation of the Oz brothers is that they celebrate all these Australian icons and stuff, and I just think about my kids wouldn't have a fucking clue who an Australian icon is. I mean, it's far more global for them, and it's just fascinating that this particular sketch is rattling off like 50 people.
But even then, I mean, nobody
go,
was sitting there going, "Oh, Dragon, yeah, oh, they were great."
Kids in America.
Men of a certain era were, I think.
Well, perhaps, but it was a whole bunch of Australian culture that was just kind of foisted upon us because we had no choice. And as soon as you got, the smallest distance away from it was just like, oh, what a joke.
Thank God I'm away from that.
Yeah, it wasn't like, the early 90s was this golden age where everyone was sitting around going, oh, Boone, what a top bloke. Get Dragon back on air. It's just like, nah, just into the bin.
Yeah, thanks for refreshing my memory. I had forgotten.
Well, see, on the other side of the coin, the girls they list, Ray Martin, the Leyland brothers, Leyland sisters, Darren Hinch, Stan Grant, Yana Vent, the Little River Band, and then they deliberate over whether George Janikian is a dead set legend or a girl, because he does have a mo, but he's of an ethnic background.
Ooh.
And yeah, they eventually put him on the girls' side of the fence. I don't know what else to really say, especially about the people they reckon are girls.
Isn't Little River Band Australia's first all-girl band?
And then just to sort of break up the tedium, across the screen scrolls 12 minutes to Razia.
Is it 12 minutes to Razia, though? I mean, has anyone done the timing? I haven't, but I sort of estimated it, and I think it's wrong.
Unnecessary bloody what do you call that sort of bait advertising or whatever it was called?
Sizzle.
Well, I think the whole point, like, I always, when I think of The Late Show, the Oz brothers are like towards the end. It's like, aren't they the last sort of recurring characters that we get on The Late Show?
I don't know. I loved it at the time, really 100% loved it. And I remember it was one of our most quoted things in the playground. And that whole story I might have told you about meeting Merv Hughes and Booney at Southland, you know, like, and getting him to sign the book with the Oz Brothers quote. Like, that was huge for me at the time. But just now I'm just like, oh, toxic masculinity can go sit in the corner. I'm not bothered.
Well, there are still some huge fans of the Oz Brothers because I was on my work Slack on Thursday and all of a sudden one of my colleagues posts, "This country's stuffed with the Oz Brothers." And I was like, hey. And then I told him about our podcast and website, so I've got a free plug there for it.
Actually, this particular Oz Brothers is missing that quote, isn't it? They don't actually say this country's stuffed.
No, because it's always I've had a gutful and unbelievable, and you have a go at me.
So, the Oz Brothers finished things up by playing a video game starring who else but Booney.
I don't know. It just reminds me, because I think I freaked out about, like, this must have cost $1 million. It's because, have you guys ever seen You've Got Mail? And the opening is like tick, 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 tick. You know, it's like this, I don't know what you would call it, a digital matrix of New York. And if you listen to the director's commentary for that movie, which, thank you, I have done, Nora Ephron talks about how this cost an absolute fortune. And, you know, this is the same sort of era of the 90s. Trying to do anything digital just would have been so expensive.
Now, I don't want to, I'm just gambling on my dim memories on this, but I have some vague recollection that this was done by like a fan or something. I'm not sure if they paid money for this. I could be completely wrong and thinking of something entirely different, but I vaguely remember something about somebody asking them and saying, "This must have cost you a fortune." And they were like, "Oh no, some computer nerd we knew knocked it up over, you know, a couple of months or something." So I could be entirely wrong. This is the least useful pseudo fact I have on offer.
Well, see, I've got
sounds plausible.
A tiny bit more, and this is also I might be wrong territory as well, because there is a credit in the episode, computer animation Doug Bain.
Okay.
Now I'm not sure.
Where are you now?
I'm not sure about this, but I think that might be the same Doug Bain who played Mephisto in an ABC comedy series called Double the Fist.
Oh, I remember that.
And I think he might have done some of the CGI special effects.
Oh, they did all of that.
It's very cheap special effects heavy, that series.
Yeah. Double the Fist was like, they did it all entirely themselves from what I remember.
Yeah.
Very much. Like that was their pitch, that we could do this show with all this computer effects and we can do it ourselves. And I think that was how they sold it to the ABC to some extent. So, yeah, if it's the same guy, then I wouldn't be surprised at all.
I mean, it's pretty well done. You know, it looks like a really authentic kind of early 90s game. It's pretty lo-fi.
Yeah.
When it's just a video of them running through, you know, making his moustache bigger and his gut bigger and all this. You know, they're not really playing it. It's just a video. But, yeah, it does look pretty authentic. So well done to Doug Bain.
Yeah, so great.
We have another Sunblend rice commercial.
Yeah, just quickly, they're no longer specifying how many minutes to Razia. Now we've just got to stand by.
Stand by through several more sketches before we get to it,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, another commercial of Sunblend rice, and it's a very outspoken food.
Yeah, there's a lot of stereotypes in this next one. Talking about
you've got the Japanese spearing a whale, and something about Tiananmen Square as well. So
and the Malaysian kid that's getting kidnapped by their dad.
The Malaysian takeaway,
everything was really horrible puns.
Yeah, a fiery French dish signified by a rice mushroom cloud. And Germany represented by a swastika. Have a taste of what Germany's rediscovering.
Yeah.
That's a 50-year-old reference there.
We're back on stage, and it's Late Show fan mail time, and Tony reads a letter from S. Ranch from Mulgrave, Victoria. Someone finding an escort service ad in the Yellow Pages with an image that looks like Jane.
I hold you partially responsible, Alison, for opening the floodgates to all these lookalikes that we're about to experience.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't the first lookalike. I was just an early adopter.
But this
still, Tony Martin in the Diff Lamb commercials is a pretty bloody good lookalike, though.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think Rob as a World War II Nazi soldier is quite good.
It's a goofy Rob, though, that one.
Yeah.
But I distinctly remember that escort ad was legit because we looked it up in the Yellow Pages and found it. I can't believe I didn't keep the page.
A very convincing Jane lookalike, in an ad for club escorts in the Yellow Pages. As the boys say, delightfully sophisticated and fun-loving companions. Yeah, that's our Janie.
Very beautiful woman. Anyway, Tommy G reads out a letter from Michael Ryan, and it's a bit awkward where it comes out to talking about religion, religious schools, and Catholic priests. I tried to clean it up, and there's nothing there. Like the person, whatever they yelled out was not on microphone, so it was just more or less a reaction.
Dear DGen, as several of the Late Show cast have admitted to being Catholics, I was wondering, were any of you abused by priests at school? Hey. Excuse me.
I think it was just that people were laughing at that line.
Oh, yeah. I don't think there was any call-out.
I think the laugh was fine. It was because when he... that was, I think, Annie Marver's well-known big laugh.
It sort of seemed to me to be more like an awkward laugh, considering that they've sort of done a bit of a 180 here in going from funny lookalikes to were any of you abused by priests at school? And I know that was probably a fake letter to get into a sketch, but
I just think that's all performance. Like it's all like, hey, everyone, like we're trying to get serious here,
I reckon someone said something from the audience that was quite offensive, but it wasn't picked up on the mic.
I mean, you might hear that, but I don't reckon.
Right.
But I mean, regardless of that, it's like you wouldn't do that joke today, knowing what you know about the pain of all of those people who went through that for real. I'm not saying it's like woke culture or whatever, but no, I just think you wouldn't do that today. You'd leave it well alone.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, people knew about what had happened in Catholic schools. It was starting to come out in the 80s and 90s. But yeah, people would definitely be more sensitive to that. It wouldn't be a target for comedy, whereas, I guess they're still kind of thinking, well, this is something we can make a few jokes out of. I mean, there's quite a nice line a bit later where he talks about how he was the captain of the under-15 jazz ballet squad. That's a nice line.
I do like the fact that he attended the Lady of Perpetual Guilt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, it sort of seems like this bit from Tommy, it's more having a go at the current affairs tropes rather than the actual abuse. But I do agree that it's still too sensitive a topic that you wouldn't do it today.
Oh, look, I think you find with a weekly show like this as well, a lot of the time there's jokes and sketches where you think if they had a couple more weeks, it would have really been focused on what they were making fun of.
Yeah.
But because they're doing it, they've got a couple of days, it's just like, what's the funniest stuff we can put in, get it done and move on. And so, I think this sketch has its heart in the right place, and it wants to make fun of how tabloid TV exploits these stories. But then it's like, well, we've got a couple of jokes about child abuse, and we've got to get some jokes in here, and the sketch is going out tonight, so we've got to do what we can.
I do wonder if the late mail was a chance for them to present a couple of half-baked ideas.
Yeah.
Like they weren't
I think so. Yeah.
fully scripted, they weren't costumed, they just, tried them out. And I think that's fine.
Yeah, it's definitely their sandbox, isn't it?
Yeah.
You generally don't get quality material in this section, which is...
Apart from your letter, of course.
I was going to say...
Apart from my letter, which is obviously the most brilliant thing they ever aired.
room to do their jokes, and yet people and viewers decide to ruin it by writing in actual letters.
Yeah. And I'm continue to be sorry about that.
Yeah, did you say that this letter was written by S. Rant?
No. That was the first one. This one was written by Michael Ryan.
Oh, okay. I thought that was...
And answered on the joke that, as soon as it happened, I ranked Phil Donahue.
But Jace explains that during their break, they went and did something practical, and that was to go find the Wizard of Oz on the Hume Highway. So think like they're New York, the success from that, and they've gone, all right, let's now try a different musical.
This is pretty much the less successful sequel to New York, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, their heart's in the right place, but it's not as fun.
No. It's impressive they got onto the Westgate Bridge to do it. But
the costumes are great.
It looks kind of slightly dangerous with all the cars going
It's
past.
really dangerous. When they said the highway, it's like, oh, yeah. And then when they're on the Westgate Bridge, it's like,
That's
I don't know how they got to do that.
That's insane.
Really, you would not be walking around there. No.
Props to the makeup and props to Tony exploding after being hit by the car.
Yeah. So we had Jane as Dorothy, Jason as the Scarecrow, Tony as the Tin Man, and Mick as the Cowardly Lion.
Yeah, it was beautifully shot too. It did have that Technicolor sort of thing.
Yeah. We're on the stage again, and Judith and Jane are presenting something that they're trying so hard to do, but it just keeps falling over. It was brilliant. And that is after a slideshow of them going on a glamorous holiday, which was legit because every photo had some booze in their hands. So the ladies provide travel holiday tips, and Judith likes to pack something inexpensive that she can leave behind.
No, expensive, not inexpensive.
Oh, what did I do? Oh, I wrote inexpensive. Stupid. Sorry, I did.
This is not like flammable and inflammable.
Yeah. Chicken shit magnet. So. Anyway,
yeah, something expensive and inappropriate that she can leave behind, and in this case, it's an antique clock.
I think only Paul Keating travels with antique clocks.
What's that in reference to?
That's just a 90s reference. Paul Keating's hobby is collecting antique clocks.
Oh, that's right.
And this was much mocked in the 1990s because, oh, look at this snooty guy collecting antique clocks.
Yeah, and he listens to classical music.
Yeah, why doesn't he go to the footy like normal men? There's all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's definitely he's a girl. He's not
he would be a girl. He would be a girl. Not a dead set legend. Hawkeye would have been a dead set legend.
Now, this might sound like a bit of an obvious tip, but don't forget that you are on holiday. The key is relaxing. Sleep in. Spoil yourself. Listen to the sounds of the sea and the always relaxing...
Housekeeping.
Minibar. Room service.
Did you order room service? No, I didn't order room service.
I think you ordered some champagne crème.
Dearie me.
No, we didn't. I don't think we did either.
Brilliant crowbar in there.
It is definitely a sketch worthy of having Mr. Champagne Comedy in, though, because it's maybe not one of their better ones, this sketch.
Rob fully knew because they kept fluffing all their jokes. It was a beautiful train wreck.
Oh, I don't think so. I think there was some really great joke delivered by Jane in particular. Like there was the one where she described the cocktail, full of a fruit platter and umbrellas. Like that was a lot of words that she had to successfully say in the right order, and she did a great job. But I guess it's just a little bit like, it's not that it's a bad thing, it's just a little bit off key because it's not all of the usual late show style. It's actually Judith's style, which we later would come to know very well. But yeah, this is in that sort of category of everyone disliking Judith. But I just think it was just slightly off key,
Fair enough.
See, for me, I reckon that this sketch doesn't really get going until we hit that nightclub at the resort with Jason as the cocktail barman, absolutely hamming it up in the background.
It's a little bit tricky for Jude and I because, well, we're rather famous. Celebrities, people notice us.
Television personalities.
It's a little bit awkward when we go out, so it's very important to make sure.
Yeah, we like to.
You don't draw attraction to yourself.
We like to keep it pretty low key.
Just keep it low key when you head out.
Anyway, Jane Kennedy, what are you having to drink?
Oh, I'm not sure, Judith. Lucy from The Late
Show. Gosh, that's a funny program. You would have heard of The Late Show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen you before.
Yeah?
Yellow Pages, Club Escort.
You can absolutely tell that that's been sprung on Jane just by her reaction.
Yeah,
She
that's
had
a
no
good
idea
line.
it was coming.
That's a good line. Do you notice also that they've got the Late Show caps and the Late Show T-shirts on? The Late Show T-shirts are actually different to the ones that they sold in the ABC shop. I know this because I've got one. And yeah, it has the ABC logo on the sleeves. And when you bought one at the ABC shop, it did not have anything on the sleeves. It just had the Late Show on the front.
Yeah, they also had something I couldn't read on the back as well.
Probably production crew or something on the back.
Okay.
I will point out, though, that there was always the subtlety of when they're going to hook up for a one-night stand.
Are you sure that's not them in their Thelma and Louise guises? That they also brought back out for a second showing.
I mean, it's interesting the way this doesn't sort of click because in a way, it really is that it's in that tradition of late show sort of list sketches that they would do live where it's like, here's what happens at a video store, here's what happens at a dinner party, and it's just, here's what happens when you go away. But I think it's just not everyone has the same experiences going away. It's just not quite as universal. So you don't the jokes don't quite land as well.
I mean, yeah, there are some decent observations in it, like individual bits, like, you know, the bit where they order room service and it's $90 for a ham sandwich.
Yeah.
You know, I think anyone who's ever stayed in a hotel will have been stung for some ridiculous, you know, sort of bit of room service or whatever. But yeah, it just doesn't kind of work as a cohesive whole. I think it's just a bunch of kind of sketches, or lines rather, some of which work, some of which don't.
And we also get cameos from Santo as a very sleazy gentleman who it turns out is named Mustafa, and then Tony and an audience member by the name of Jennifer.
Yes, and that is the most unflattering wig Tony has ever put on his head, ever.
Doesn't do it for you?
He looks a bit like that character he was playing in the Paradise Beach sketch on two cordless phones. Damn it!
Damn it!
Like the Andrew Fife one when he was the Guess What?
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
You quite liked that one, didn't you?
The 2 hours later, when they're pissed as, and Santo gets to spit out his great line. Hey, would you like me to speak Maltese to you again? In hobo Hafna. Hafna. I have no idea if that's actual Maltese or not.
Hey, would you like me to speak Maltese to you again? Nina in Hobok Hafna. Hafna.
There you go. I can speak Maltese.
Yay!
It was all right, but
I would suggest that these jokes don't work because actually no one really knew what it was like for two young women to go on holiday. You know, this was the 90s and nobody was listening to young women's stories really, except if it was puberty blues or something.
Yeah.
It was like, so yeah, it doesn't really land because nobody knows if German backpackers come in and drink all your minibar. It's like, hang on, what? So, yeah, it's kind of a fascinating education, but it's not that funny, unfortunately.
The moment is finally here.
Yes. Here we go.
I don't think I'm ready for this.
Toilet break time. Act 2, Razia. That's it. That's all I could use because it was just all music and all dance, no talking.
How to describe the act that is Razia? I mean, basically, yeah, she's got her eyes open really wide. She's dancing around. She's wearing a sort of flamenco dress. The music is pure 70s disco, but the dancing style is kind of got a Middle Eastern vibe to it. It's a weird mix of things that just don't fit together at all. And also, she's a rubbish dancer. The choreography's terrible, and yeah,
she also has a very bored, disinterested look on her face as well.
Yeah, yeah, she's obviously really into it, whatever it is that she thinks she's doing. But you know, I totally agree with Bernard. I'm totally perplexed by it, and it's rubbish.
Well, here's Bernard's result.
Such a dedicatee of the dance. I usually advise dancers to spend a lot more time at the bar. In the case of your presentation, I would rather have been at the bar. At the cocktail bar, actually, for several days. The other day we scored a young person 10 for not turning up. Today I'm being very generous and giving Razia 10 for turning up. There are areas we're expected to assess your work on. Talent, nil. Presentation, nil. Potential, totally nil. But a sum total of 10 for generosity.
Oh, amazing. And we've heard those words before: talent nil, presentation nil, potential totally nil. We heard those earlier in this series, being uttered after the Nolene Donoghue video clip. And we'll also hear them again uttered by one of the cast later on in this series as well. That's just an amazing takedown by Bernard. And you can sort of see at first Razia is sort of having a bit of a laugh at it with the, you know, I should have been at the bar, you know, the cocktail bar. And then he moves on to being utterly serious, and the smile just
her face.
You can see the dreams being crushed.
What are the scores so far, Daniel?
Okay, so with that sum total of 10 for generosity, that puts her right at the bottom of the leaderboard.
Ooh.
Oh. Now, I'm not quite sure how, like, if there's two people that are equal first, that means the next ranking is the third, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. No, well, it's just because we've got a couple of people on 15 points equals 7th. And, Razia shares 10 points equal 9th with the infamous Krista Cruel, You Keep Me Hanging On. So, yeah, she's right on the bottom of the leaderboard.
Time for Graham and the Colonel, and we have Colonel going to Hong Kong for holidays, or on holidays for shopping, where he got milk, bread, eggs, and toilet paper.
And then was it purchased at the duty free because there's a limit of 4 toilet rolls per customer? Everyone laughs at that.
Yeah.
Nowadays,
not nowadays.
No one's laughing at that nowadays. It's actually real.
Graham went up north to the islands. Whit Sundays? No, the islands below, the Whit Saturdays.
I think these jokes deserve more credit than they're given, though.
Yeah.
I quite like Boxing Day Island, which is sort of near Christmas Island.
And also, we have Alan Border holding the Ashes trophy, which they're surprised at how small it is because he left them in his pants and they got shrunk in the wash. Also, operations on the players: Boone with knee surgery, Merv with stomach staple, and Tim May with a comb over. Sorry, these are just quick fire ones, you know. So,
it was a really quick Graham and the Colonel this episode.
And Paul Keating in trouble for ordering the table. It's back again. From Thailand and made from a rainforest. At least Graham and the Colonel know where they got their equipment from. It's from the Daintree where they got their table.
They know the exact part of the Daintree, and you could hear the ooh from the audience.
Yeah.
I don't know why they found that galling and not the child, Catholic abuse thing earlier.
And also mentioned in the news about the World War, the U-boat. That was mentioned earlier. According to Graham and the Colonel, the World Book Encyclopedia, I should say, of Graham and the Colonel, Gilligan was on board. So, yeah, that was really it of Graham and the Colonel. It was pretty lackluster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so much of Graham and the Colonel just relies on them stuffing up and then sort of feuding amongst themselves. So when it's straightforward, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There is a bit where they say, oh, there's a bit of a lag in the audience when the audience don't laugh at any of their jokes. So there's a little bit of that.
Yeah.
And I do love the bit where Rob starts moving his chair in and out and he's kind of just doing some exercises, getting the blood circulating.
We do also get a little bit of fighting with Rob operating the ping machine.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Santo yelling, "Shut up!" at him.
Don't dwell on it, yeah.
It was a very substandard Graham and the Colonel. I think they were sort of just, trying to get to the end of the episode.
Especially for this closing where Tony decides to plug the D-Generation special and bag out the ABC at the same time.
Yeah, the ABC's incredible publicity blitz. I mean, that was one of their complaints at the time, wasn't it, for the whole series, really, that they just got zero publicity, and the ABC publicity department didn't seem to have heard of the show.
No.
And really, it was a word-of-mouth hit.
Yeah, the ABC publicity department was notorious for decades. They were very disinterested in a lot of their product. It was just from the media side of things, it was really hard for a really long time to get even basic stuff out of the ABC. It's changed a lot in the last decade or so. I think the internet has really put them on their toes. But before the internet, it was really tough getting anything out of the ABC publicity department. I assume they had the ways they like to work, and if you weren't part of their system, they weren't interested in helping you out.
Yeah, remember when I was 16 and I wrote to them and asked for a photo of Fry and Laurie, and they just wrote back and said no? But I actually typed the letter. No.
I can't believe they did that. They wrote the letter.
No.
Well, see, I also think that some of Tony Martin's ire might have been that, as far as I can tell, the listings in the Age Green Guide and also on the Saturday Ross Warnicky critical guide thing still listed the shows as The Late Show rather than Best of the Original D-Gen and an Olden Days compilation. So, like, the fact that the program information wasn't even making it out to the guide makers, I'm pretty sure that would have definitely raised Tony's ire.
So we have the musical finale, and it is not Cyndi Lauper, but Maxie Walker.
Oh, girls, they want to have fun. Oh, girls, they want to have fun.
Fast forward 2 years to nearly exactly the same date where obviously we can't get Max Walker on board to have a chat about the time. He did appear on Martin Malloy talking about that time.
There's one thing I have noticed, particularly about Australian sportsmen. Every couple of weeks you turn on the news and there's footage of a bloke jumping into a bathtub full of baked beans, running out into the MCG in a ballet tutu, running up Hindley Mall in Adelaide with a stack of pancakes on the head because they've lost some kind of bet. It's an Australian tradition. Have you ever had to do anything like that yourself?
No, I was invited onto The Late Show once. And,
that's right.
You might remember that. I've never been able to forget it. The orange suit is just about immortal in my life. I mean, I can't get rid of it. Girls just want to have fun, eh? Cyndi Lauper. I mean, I just let go of the steering wheel that afternoon. It was just
certainly did. You were in good company. That's all I can say about it. Exactly. You weren't the Lone Ranger, Maxie.
Not on my own at all.
Sorry, Hindley Mall?
At least they didn't call it Hindley Mall.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah,
but yeah, he means
people from Adelaide fuming at that reference.
I'm just
Rundle
freaking out over Tony
and Hindley Street. Honestly,
Tony had a real Ocker accent in Martin Malloy, didn't he? It was hard to get over.
Well, have a listen to this. Have a listen to the impressions.
And
Mate, I tell you what, I remember back in '73, the first time I saw a three-pack of CDs. Three-pack, Yeah. I had that three-pack in my hand as I came steaming in from the Randwick end. I was in the subcontinent, I had the big red cherry, and all I could think about was the three-pack of CDs. I tell you what.
dueling Maxes.
Yeah.
They were just egging each other on, weren't they?
Well,
so funny.
Okay, there was I think it was, the phone compilation at the end of one of the albums. It might have been Brown Album or Poop Shoot. But, when they had that kid sing Martin Malloy to Advance Australia Fair, that was a Max Walker impression.
We got Joshua there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Joshua, give us a bit of Max Walker.
Okay. Whether you've been beaten, bruised or hit while you're a girl or boy, all you should do is stand or sit and shoot into Martin Malloy.
Anyway, so that goes on.
But yeah, Max really puts his all into it.
He does,
Even though he can't sing very well, I'm guessing because he wasn't able to hear the music at the time, he doesn't keep very good time in it.
Well, that makes it
He's
brilliant.
so dynamic, though, isn't he? He just
you kind of forgive him for that.
Yeah. But I remember at the time being fascinated by the surroundings. Like, what was this house? You know, I was convinced that it was somewhere in Elwood because they've got a Tennyson Street sign. And I don't think I fully understood the prop set that they did. Like, there's all these oranges and a juicer on the table, and I'm like, why? And like the little girls' room that they go to is so eclectic. It's hard to sort of get your head around it. It's like, are we in a little girl's room? It's just got a bunk bed. It's got some weird stuff in it.
But if you want to see
to be fair, there's nobody else in the Late Show parody where there's quite a cast of extras in the Cyndi Lauper original. Like there was some wrestler and some other person as Cindy's mum and dad, and obviously Cyndi had her girlfriends and all that, and then there's a big party right at the end of the video clip.
Yeah.
I don't know why I know the video clip so well, but
anyway, you can see the Max Walker clip on YouTube as well if you want to go for a search and see what the hell we're on about. But now it is audience ticket time after the closing credits, and everyone at the bar is pissed. So we're getting pissed anyway. And that was the entire...
At the Whit Saturdays.
Yeah, at the Whit Saturday Islands.
Anything to try and get a laugh on that gag.
Yeah.
Do you notice in this bit there's a slightly awkward moment where Santo is tapping Rob on the shoulder, like patting him, and Rob shrugs him off? You have to watch that in slow-mo. But it's like, fuck off.
And now the closing credits, was there any Easter eggs, I should say, Daniel?
Well, certainly slightly longer credits, because the special guests were, and this is verbatim, the Honourable Wayne Goss, Premier of Queensland. I don't know what, maybe it was part of his appearance stipulation that they had to point out he's the Premier.
Well, that's the proper term that you need to kind of do it, but now it's like the formal way of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Along with Max Walker, with Graham Evans. Now, the thanks tos are a little bit longer because I would say, again, probably as a stipulation of being able to use Bluey from Crawford's, they did have to thank John Diedrich, Lucky Grills, the estate of the late Gerda Nicholson. Also, thanks to ABC News for the footage, Commando Skydivers for that 10-second news desk gag, the Premier's Office Queensland, Shirley Strawn, Peter Smith, Lou Richards, and the Victorian Police, which obviously might let you know that they might have been in on the Joe Bailey protest there. They also listed the Rice animation by Nick Hilligoss and the computer animation by Doug Bain.
That really wraps it up for episode 31 of the Champagne Comedy Podcast. Wow, we've went through a lot. So, So, usual contact details, champagnelateshow@gmail.com, Twitter at TLSChampagne, site champagnecomedy.com, Facebook, The Late Show page, as well as the group, the Champagne Comedy Podcast. Just search for it. It's on private, but answer the 3 questions and you're in. And our Shonky Redbubble store, bit.ly/Champagne Comedy. And don't forget, if you want to try and work out if you can enter the Barjas competition, just skip back to Barjas and listen to what the hell I'm talking about trying to explain the competition. I promise it'll be easier next episode. So...
We are not setting the bar very high, people.
Yes. In fact, if we set it any lower, I don't know. Anyway...
We wouldn't have you enter.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Alison, Daniel, Kim, Prue, and Tony for coming on. I'm Matt. Thanks very much. See you next episode.
Thanks. All we are saying is yes, Adelaide accent.
Thank you for listening to the Champagne Comedy Podcast, created by fans for the fans. For more information on this podcast, please visit champagnecomedy.com. Produced by Matt Fulton Productions, mattfulton.com.au.